Hey everybody, welcome to not a cigar show. Okay, maybe a little bit. Episode 359. It's not really episode 359, Skip. I just make up whatever number I want. And please welcome everybody, Skip Martin. Before I start, I want to smoke. So you have to pick a number between between one and five.
3.1459.
An even number between one and five. I forget who I'm talking to here.
A real integer is what you're saying?
A real
Three.
integer. Three. Oh, I was hoping you would say that because, okay, so just so you know, one was a pre-release Wonderlust.
Oh,
No
man,
idea where that came
I
from.
wish I still had some of those.
Intemperance Volstar. Volstead, sorry. Intemperance Whiskey Rebellion. And thank God you didn't pick five, because it is still one of these babies, the femur, shrink wrapped from a very early, late night, early morning, 3 a.m. We finished some rum and cigars. Probably one of the only two times that I can think of in the cigar industry that I actually think I was like way over on the nicotine. Like it was somewhere around the 2 a.m. mark. I think that was at your factory. So anyway, Neanderthal. So actually, I'm thrilled. This is a go-to for me. So tell me what's going on. Where are you right now? You're in Houston right now, right?
I'm in Austin.
Or Austin, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, we come here. I mean, I have to leave the country every 90 days, but I generally come here. I generally come here for a short period and then come back. But when school's out, we'll spend a month or two here. But this time, Fiorella broke her collarbone, so we ended up being here for 2.5, 3 months. So it's actually a little bit longer than normal.
So are you like super antsy to get back? Or are you doing okay? Have you like settled into it?
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, I need to leave civilization. So I have this recurring thing where I have these so generally society has lost the ability to respond to service failures. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm one of these people. It's like I never haggle over price per se. Um, if I don't feel like I'm getting a good value, I won't use that good or service.
Right.
But when you kind of pay a premium price and you expect a certain level of service, and for me, the minimum kind of service is kind of responding to service failures.
Uh-huh.
And then, so anyway, when I get into these interactions, um, my first thought is, AI is going to take this person's job, and I'm going to be so happy when it happens. And then, the second thought I have is, for the person who owns or manages the business, like, do they realize
Right.
it blows my mind how much focus and effort people put on getting business like this. There's a whole, marketing is a science, right? Like
Right. Right.
how do I get customers to come to me? But then how little effort actually goes into, once they get here, how do I get them? It's like these companies that, they'll sit in a room with a dozen people and talk up, and come up with an idea for a cigar brand and all the different stories and all this stuff, and then what's the packaging going to look like, and the colors, and the effort that goes into all that is greater than the just make it the way you're supposed to make it,
Right.
and sell it for a fair price. You know what I mean? It's like the sizzle is more important than the steak, kind of
Right.
old adage. And I don't know. Anyway,
I,
going back,
I don't think
going
people
and
I don't
Nick.
think people get that it's better. It's cheaper to try to keep a customer by doing things right than it is to get a new one. Once they're already in house, 90% of the work's done. You just got to deliver what brought them as your customer.
You would think, right? I mean, like
You think.
in Nicaragua, I expect no service generally.
Right.
So what happens in Nicaragua is you don't expect it, so you're like, you're never disappointed, right? And it's
Right.
easy,
Right. Right. Right.
it's easy to be wowed, right?
Right.
In general, in general, I have this thing where uh I'm not really frustrated unless I depend on you and you don't come through. Like whether it's
Hmm.
an employee or a partner or a friend or whatever. It's
Right.
like if I've got this part, like if I'm covering the rear and you're covering the front, and somebody
Hmm.
walks in the front and shoots me in the back, then I'm pissed, right? Because you fucked
Right.
me, right?
Right.
You didn't do your thing. Um, Now if somebody comes in the side and that wasn't something I was expecting you to cover,
Right.
um, then it is what it is. You just deal with it. But um,
I think it's the messy middle that annoys me. So I always say this in a food analogy. I'm perfectly happy with a good $5 cheeseburger, and I'm perfectly happy with a $150 tomahawk that's made with truffle oil and all the other shit. What I don't like is the middle ground of a shitty steak for $70. Like that's the stuff where I have this false expectation that you say you're going to deliver, but you don't deliver. I'm okay on the opposite end of the spectrum. Low cheeseburger, there's no expectation. I walk up to a taco truck and I don't have this huge expectation, although now I kind of do, but I used to not initially. Now I'm like, well, this is really where the good food is. The good food in a restaurant is the one that literally is 1 point away from being shut down to a food problem. I mean, honestly, it
I
really
mean,
is.
I get the analogy. I mean, $70 is a pretty high end steak for me, but I get the analogy. That's 100%. I mean, that's exactly right. It's like deliver what whether it's amazing because like on airlines, for example. I mean, I have millions of miles. I mean, I get automatic, lifetime, whatever.
Right.
I mean, I used to literally fly from Austin around the entire globe and back to Austin, once a month for years, right? Um, and they're constantly I mean, weather happens, stuff like that. There's nothing you could do. Equipment
Right.
happens. I'd rather you not take off and crash the plane. I get all that.
Hmm.
But when, for example, when they choose because a crew member didn't get up on time, or because for whatever reason they choose to delay your flight, and then used to, somebody would automatically come to the gate with a cart and say, hey, let's rush you over to the other one so you don't miss your connecting
Right. Right.
flight. But instead, what happens now is nobody gives a shit. You walk off the plane and you're stuck somewhere for 24 hours. It's like,
Right. Right.
and then you have to contact an AI chatbot to you know it's like, well, that's okay, but I haven't bought an economy ticket in 15 years. I'm flying first class all over the world, or business
Hmm.
class. And our organization spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on travel. Mike's moved over to American, but not that American or Delta or anyone else is any different. They're all the same. They're all like
Hmm.
the race to the bottom. But again, it's not about the service failure, because it happens. You have to be just a total dick to not realize stuff happens. But it's about how they recover from it, right? And it's like in a restaurant when they say, well, I'll give you a free dessert, or I'll take that off the bill. I'm like, well, I'm not looking for money. I'm just,
Right.
more than anything, what I want is I want you to say, you know what, thanks for the feedback. Clearly you got an insight into this. Can I set up 10 minutes to, give me some ideas on how,
Right. Right.
you know what I mean? Like, where they're really interested. The truth is that they're just not interested. It's like, how do I make you go away?
Right. Right. So
Well,
tell me. So this is your hot button. So this is
yeah.
your hot button in the States right now, stuff like that. How does this affect how you run RoMa Craft? Because I mean, like it's definitely it's craft. It's a certain level. You obviously have this in your mindset because you're delivering a service now. You're delivering what. So how does this affect your day-to-day operations or the philosophy you have with the company?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that you focus on service delivery first, right? Meaning it's the quality of the product. You do everything you can do to not have defects. You do everything you can do to deliver what you say you're going to deliver for the at the quality level you're saying you're going to deliver it at the price,
Hmm.
at a fair
Hmm.
price, right? Um, you ensure a lot of those things by having really rigorous process. Process is a really important thing, because when there is a departure in quality or whatever, the process is what allows you to say, okay, this is the quality issue. First, let's solve it with the customer, right? Oversolve it.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
second question is, okay, how did it happen so we can prevent it again? And then the third question is this happening to anybody else, where we can proactively reach out to them and say, like, I'll give you an example. I don't know why, but there's like some recent thing that's happening with us where, because we export from Nicaragua to Miami, and then we clear it in Miami, and then we freight forward it to Austin, just because
Okay.
the people in Austin, the People's Republic of Austin, don't really understand how to handle, the basically it's like a shipment of cocaine,
Right,
a
right, right.
shipment of tobacco. So so it's just easier to do it that way. Plus flights from Nicaragua to Miami, the cost is not that much more just to over the road it. But there's a lot of
Right,
risk. There's a lot of risk there, right? So you have to really, we pay extra to do, hot shots where like they're partner drivers, where one guy drives it halfway, and
right,
so they're not on the road for more than a day or two.
right.
Also, so it doesn't get stolen. So for a lot of reasons, it doesn't have temperature variance, whatever. So the we had feedback from someone that our short perfecto baca, they had a box where it was coming unraveled, right?
Okay.
And it's like, first of all, Cameroon is a fragile wrapper, right? So we're thinking, okay,
What's the humidity? Where were they stored?
all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
But
yeah.
long and short, what happened is probably that box got knocked over somewhere. The pointy tip hit, moved, the cigar moved in the box, the pointy tip hit the edge, and cracked it somehow, and then every cigar in that box is bad. So obviously it's one of those products where we don't just have 100 extra boxes sitting in the back to fix it. So the first question was, hey, how do we fix this for you? And then the second question was, how do we prevent this from going forward? And, there's all kinds of process things about, hey, we changed the guy in the factory, but we're not supposed to put the boxes in the shipping crates um, uh, flat. They're supposed to be up and down. So if the box is dropped, it doesn't drop on the point. You know what I'm saying? The movement.
Yeah.
So things like that, but then it's like, hey, let's call anybody else who got these cigars in the last, that came out of that same box. So because we can track which crate was opened, what date that was shipped. There's 54 other boxes that got sent from that
And you know where
box,
they went.
right? And we call those people and say, hey, can you check these and make sure they're okay? So all that is to say, um, it's like the golden rule. It's like, if I was a customer and this happened to me, what would I want to have happen? Cigars are one of those things where it's a handcrafted product. So I could probably, there's probably less than 30 in 15 years, but somebody will send me a message saying, hey, I got this cigar and I have this problem with it. And my first thought is always, as a smoker, is like, oh, well, that sucks. It's like, well, what would I do? It's like, I would go back to
Right,
the guy that I bought it from, and I would say, hey, this cigar didn't really perform. I buy so many cigars from you. I don't really expect one, but if you gave me one, I wouldn't be mad. I
right,
just wanted you to know. And if I was that retailer, I would immediately replace it. I would go in and see if there's any, if it's a systemic problem from cigars from that
right, right,
box,
right.
all those things. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, I'm the manufacturer. I make 1 million of these a year. You got the 1.0001% of the bad one. It costs me nothing to replace it. But it's like, at the same time, it's really the retailer is the one in the right position. I'm not a retailer for a reason, right? I mean, I've made
Hmm.
about $1.65 on this $12 cigar. The
Right,
retailer made $6. You know what I
right,
mean? So
right,
it's like, if I'm the retailer, I want you coming to me. But then they say, well, I got it from Cigar Page. And I'm like, well, we don't sell to Cigar Page. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell
right,
you.
right.
I said, I can send you a cigar, you know, if that's what you want. I can pay the $8 to send you a $2
Right.
cigar or whatever. I said, but I can tell you, I appreciate you telling me, but we don't really have a systemic quality issue.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying going back to where you purchased it. I think that is the level of defense, and that is where they should be on that. You said an interesting point. I like that you said to the customer, "How can we make this right for you?" Because there's too much of the here's our procedure of how we define we're going to make it right. We're going to make it right by mailing you another single stick or another box. When in reality, the guy might want something completely different that makes it an over the top win for him. And I like that attitude, because a lot of people don't have that. What makes it right for you?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm that guy, like I said earlier, what I'm kind of more dial into is, hey, I think I know why this happened. I'm not interested in my quality issue, but I want you to be interested in my opinion about how you prevent this from happening to other people.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like for me, that's more important as an individual than So maybe all the person wants is to say, you know, um, why is Cigar Page selling your cigars? Maybe, if you don't
right.
sell to them, and whatever the issue is. But all that is to say, I need to get back to Nicaragua where I have no expectations, and
Right, right,
I'm
right,
just
right.
sitting on the beach. Um, the I don't think most people realize. I mean, there's more taxes and tariffs in a cigar than tobacco and labor.
Right.
That's now
Well,
true.
let's go there, because
Yeah.
this was next on my list. Well, it was next after one other thing on my list, but let's go there now. Let's talk about tariffs. 18% Nicaragua. Uh, there's no way not to dive all in on this subject. I mean, I don't care what your political beliefs are. We're just going to talk about cold fact numbers of what the deal is. I sent you, Skip, a message the other day that at what point does, our model is Keystone. So if it ends up at $4 a stick over, or $8 a stick over at the store, they're going to double the price. Some retailers, they don't really know what's going on. They take their shipping, their tax, everything, they double it and put it on the shelf, because that's just easy math, that spreadsheet. But at what point,
That's most retailers.
yeah, well, at what point though, is if tariffs get out of control? I mean, they're already 18%. They're already going to hurt a lot of companies out there. And even at this point, but even going forward, at what point is it the retailer has to look at it going, you know what? I don't keystone the tariff portion of this, because I don't think people realize how much this is when it ends up in the shelf, because this is doubled at the retailer level.
Yeah, I mean, back when so I'll go back to when the federal excise
That's Chip.
the S chip federal excise tax was being debated, right? Um at one point they were talking about putting $10 on a cigar or
Right,
something,
right, right.
whatever it was. And it was pretty clear at that point, going from 4.5 cents to $10, that people weren't just going to double, because what used to happen was the 4.5 cents just disappeared in the cost, and whatever the cost
Sure,
was got
sure.
doubled. I mean, there was a time even not too long ago before that where Keystone was not even a thing,
Right.
right? I mean, a lot of manufacturers don't Keystone the MSRP because they for example, General Cigar. I don't know this for a fact, but this is the way I think I remember it, because I'm not a retailer anymore, so I don't have their price list. But as I remember it, at some point they basically had like a 30% markup to MSRP because they were able to sell it on their website at 10% below MSRP, which was really like 35 or 40% cheaper than what true
Right,
Keystone would be. So the retailers brought, couldn't really complain because it wasn't being reduced way below MSRP, but at the same time they were charging 20-30% over MSRP because they were doing Keystone, right?
right, right,
For people who don't know, I mean, anyone listening to this probably does, but Keystone means taking your wholesale cost and doubling it, and that is the suggested retail price. So because it has a 100% markup or 50% margin, right? So I remember when what happened was you had people like Rocky and La Florida Dominicana and these other people in the 90s who kind of wanted to stand out and say, hey, um, give us a shot in the store. Don't just go with, the Colemans in general
right.
and Altria or, I mean, at the time it was not Altadis, it was whatever it was at the time. I don't remember, but Consolidated, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
But the idea was, um, not only, are we're smaller and, there's advantages and disadvantages of that, but you can have higher margins on these products. And so
Right.
Keystone as a selling point was a was not the norm. It was a way for small guys to get in, saying,
Right.
these cigars, you're buying Romeo and Julieta vintages, which you can hardly get them, but when you buy them for $7, you can only sell them for 12, right?
Right.
If you're selling MSRP, and if you're selling at 14, everybody's complaining that you're gap price gouging.
Right. Right. Right.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna sell you cigars for 5, and then you keystone them, or 4, and then you keystone them to 8, and they're half the price of the Romeo and Julieta vintage, but more importantly, you're making 100% markup.
Right.
So Keystone then became close in the 2000s, after the boom, really became the standard, right?
Right.
And it's just an easy thing for a retailer to do. When I had a store, I marked up more than Keystone, because my store had a lot of transient traffic from the cruise ships and the island tourism.
Why not? Yeah.
So what I did is, if you came in and picked up one cigar, I was going to give you, you're paying 120% of Keystone, right? It just like if you go to a bar and buy a Miller Lite, it's going to be
Sure.
250. But if
Right. Right.
you buy a six
Wait,
pack
wait,
for
wait.
five,
Where are you getting Miller Lite for 250? Because
yeah,
out in Florida, that's not a
right,
beer is not 250.
right.
Yeah.
But whatever, it's five.
Right. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You get a shot of bourbon at a bar, or a bottle of wine, it's 3, 4, 5, 10
Sure.
x what it is,
Sure.
whatever.
And
So
we accept that. We accept that because we're also in a facility, we're in a bar, they're paying their lights on, and I have the same latitude for retail shops as well.
yeah, I do. I feel that way too. It's like if I walk in to buy one cigar and it's marked up 125%, or if it's 25% higher than it would be kind of at, a grab and go place.
Right.
But you can sit down and there's an experience, then I completely am on board with that. Now, what I did is I had a membership where if you paid like $5 a month, where I could collect your information, I basically gave you automatically a 10 or 15% discount, which really brought you down. You're still paying over Keystone. But then if you
Right.
bought 5, if you bought a box, if you had a higher level membership, so basically I got it down to where if you were a lounge member and you were paying, 1,200, which these prices aren't even, these days wouldn't work, but if you were paying 1,200 a year or whatever, $100 a month, then I basically gave $100 a month back to you against your tab. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So
So let's
basically,
go ahead. Sorry.
the idea being that, um, if you smoke one cigar a month, and it's just come in and you're not going to go online and order that. You're going to come in and grab it, and I'm
Right.
going to try to turn you into smoking one a week, right?
Right.
Um, but if you smoke a box a week, I had a guy who smoked a box of La Florida Dominicana chisels every 4 days. He was a painter. His name was Mad Dog Hunley, MD Hunley. I think his real name was like Michelle, but he never told anybody that. So everybody, he said MD stood for Mad Dog. But Mad Dog he would come in his little painting truck. He'd pull up into a parking spot with a meter, wouldn't pay it, would run in, slap $100 on the counter. Immediately when you saw his truck, you knew to grab the box, and he was just,
He's
gone.
out of there.
But
He's out of there.
he was in there every 4 days. And it got to the point where the price of those chisels went up and up and up, and I never changed the $100 because I never had 5 seconds to talk to him. It was boom, $4. But I was selling so many chisels, I was like qualifying
Right.
for the LG, ordering,
Right.
and so but I mean, at some point I said, "Hey, you're gonna have to lay down 140 next time." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "The price has gone up significantly." He goes, "I know."
3 years ago.
I know. He goes, I know they charge me 150 in Webster. I'm like, well, we'll do 140. But the point is, I don't want if look, this is a long thing, and I'll make it really short. If you're a store, there's a percentage of people within a zone of your store that actually smoke cigars. You can do the math, you know, how far is someone willing to drive, what's the population of people who are cigar smokers, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say there's X number of cigar smokers within so many in that circle. I always thought, if I'm going to put a store here, I want every single one of those people coming to me.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, if there's somebody in that circle, whatever the reasonable thing is, and they're going to put a cigar in their mouth, I want it to have come from me. Whatever I have to do to earn that business. I'm not concerned about protecting margins or whatever, I'm going to be smart about it, right? But I want that guy to buy. I want him to buy the cigars from me. And if there's anybody in that circle who has thought about smoking a cigar, I want them to come to me so I can build a new cigar smoker, right? That's all.
Right.
That's
Because
what.
you understand the lifetime value of that client, of that customer.
Right. So this is a long, long way around of saying, um, when the excise tax was 4.5 cents, we didn't really, whatever your pricing strategy was, you didn't consider it. But
Right.
then when it went up to 40 cents, you're like, okay, well,
That's a
I'm
real
gonna
number.
yeah, I'm gonna keystone it. So
Right.
so the same people who were saying, hey, if you add $1 tax, it's gonna put us out of business, turned a 40-cent tax into an 80-cent tax. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So now the truth is that circle around the store has gotten uh, a little bit smaller because people aren't as willing to travel to do things. It's also, there's a lot more competition inside of that circle from online and these other places.
Right. Right.
And even if your circle is in the wrong state or in the wrong city, there's all kinds of other bullshit you got to deal with, smoking bans and taxes and
Right.
everything else. So what's happened over time is the amount of business that a store can do has kind of been challenged, but then their their gross dollar margins have gone up because every dollar they sell, they've been able to keystone FDA fees. They've been able to
Right.
keystone S chip. They've been able to keystone right now tariffs. So essentially, used to be, you would think, a grocery store operates on 5% margins. Walmart probably operates on 5 or 10, depending on the product category, but probably overall 10% margins.
If
Costco,
that, yeah.
Costco, 7 to 10, Sam's and Costco, 7% margins or whatever. We're operating on 50% margins. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
But
So
because,
do you think the market will naturally take care of that? Because the guy that is sit there doubling the prices of everything and continues that way, the online guys, is it going to give strength to the online guys that go, look, we're going to make it up in volume. We're not going to mark it up proportionally anymore.
well, I mean, that's an interesting question because take the tariffs out of it. Here's an example. I make a cigar for $2. I've got to be able to wholesale it for $4 to make any money. Or say I make it and import it and whatever for $3. I got to sell it for
Okay.
$4 to make any money. So the MSRP is $8. So I wholesale it for $4. The guy buys it. It's $8.
Right.
Five of the companies in the United States sell 50 to 60% of the cigars in the United States. The next 25 or so customers sell another 20%. So 85, 90% of the cigars in the United States are sold by 30 retailers, 40 retailers, right?
Yep.
So every one of the other 2,000 whatever walk-in humidors in the country is only only sells 10% or 40 million cigars a year, right?
Right.
So if I'm a brand and I want to grow, I'm selling a lot to those 20, 35 customers at the top.
Right.
Um, it used to be the big guys would demand discounts and promos and terms and whatever. But now the next level of 2025, the Abes, the Dave Garofalos,
Hmm.
the people who are market movers, right? These guys have gotten smart. The Rumbos in San Antonio. They say, look, I
Yeah, they
want
know
you.
the game now. They know the game now.
They're like, if I'm going to sell your cigar, because I could sell any cigar, 100% margin is not enough for me. I want you to advertise on my podcast. I want extra margin. I want
Right.
discounts and exclusive products. I want whatever. Summer of Saka, right? I want whatever this is. So what happens is none of that stuff's not free. So now I'm making, $4 on a $3 cost. That used to be okay, but now I'm not even getting $4 out of
Right.
60% of my business. I'm only getting $3.15, right?
Right.
So what do? You change the price of your cigar to 5. Now the MSRP is 10, just so you can offset the cost of marketing or discounting or whatever, the cost of sales to those 35 customers. But then those customers are paying $4 for a $10 MSRP cigar, so they can discount it that 20% to 8 and still make fucking 100%, right?
Right, right, right.
So not only can these big companies and the volume guys, can they make a living, a good living, um, on Keystone, they're doing 20% off and still making Keystone. And so the
Hmm.
average consumer that walks into, a brick and mortar store, that average consumer is subsidizing, that retailer is subsidizing in a sense, and their consumers are subsidizing the
Right.
the prices and discounts and everything for it. The whole model is really kind of broken. So um I think it goes back to, what is the value proposition of a local store to a community? It has the value of being a place where, like a third place where people gather,
Hmm.
where commerce happens. You have local business that um, adds value to the community. But from a industry perspective, you can't launch a product on Cigars International and build a brand. You have to build it with guys putting it in another guy's hand in 2,000 stores across, or whatever, however many stores across the country. And the website doesn't build cigar smokers, right?
Right.
Now, maybe maybe a tweet up, or maybe a HERF or a blog kind of a thing. Maybe the community can build themselves in some places, but for the most part, it's the other guys in the cigar lounge that build, and the retailer
Right.
who builds the
Right.
smokers. So if you don't have those 2,000 stores, you end up back where we were in 1987, which is, it's pretty much a dead industry. It's a small room in the back of a store that sells Precious Moments and Hummels in the mall, along with your grandfather's pipe tobacco, and um, nobody smokes cigars except for those old guys. And there's only 5 or 6 real brands, right? You, in really big places like New York, maybe you had a tobacconist, but in Norfolk, Virginia, or
Right.
these places didn't exist until the kind of boom. And what really grew the cigar business wasn't just Cigar Aficionado. It was the places that grew up around the demand that built cigar smokers. So it
Right.
wasn't just a fad. I mean, at some point I smoked my first cigar, and then at some point I have smoked 80,000 cigars, and millions of dollars, and my whole life centers around it, right? So to the question, um the tariffs exasperate this problem between the largest 35 retailers and the other 2,000, because it it drives the manufacturer to require more money, which increases the gross margins, which allows the bigger guys to further punish or separate themselves from the little guys.
Right.
And
Right.
so it basically hurts the little guys. and
Yeah.
and, and
Let's go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, if you're a manufacturer like AJ Fernandez, I'll give you an example. Well, bad example, I'll use me. you know if I use X tobacco with X labor, I charge myself 30%, right? And I sell it to RoMa. So, because that's what I need to kind of break even. If I do that exact same cigar for Mike Stevankevich at Paustania, I probably, it isn't 30%. It's like 70% to 100%, right?
Right.
What the big guys do is they charge themselves, their U.S. entity, more so they can transfer price the profits down to Nicaragua, so they can invest in buildings and farms and those kinds of things, and also not have to pay federal income tax in the United States. Well, those guys have the ability to say, I was selling this $3 cigar to, or $2 cigar to myself for three, but or for four, right? Because I was selling to the retailer for 420, and I didn't want to realize any extra margin. So, but I can reduce the price from the factory. So I can take the price of this cigar export price from $3, which is um 3 times 18 is 54 cents of tax. I can take that down to $2 and pay,
Right.
36
36 cents.
cents of
Yeah.
tax. And then so on the US side, um, because I have this tariff as a cost, I can shift where I realize that money and minimize the impact on the overall cost.
Right.
But if I'm Steve Saka buying from a factory, or for Mike Stefankavich buying from a factory, that company is making the money at the factory, so
Right. Right.
so
Right.
so they can't reduce the price, and the tariff doesn't impact the factory at all,
No. No.
because it doesn't get charged until it lands wherever you sent it,
Right. It's
right?
already out of your hands. It's already out
Right.
of your profits. Yeah.
You pay the invoice to me, and then you are responsible for whatever you got to pay, Uncle Sam.
Right.
So I say all that to say, that's pretty deep in the weeds, but when you start seeing these tariff things, all these companies, they sit in a room, and and every company has a different perspective on it, because me, um, Mike and we can change the factory price
Right.
without committing fraud. We can just charge
Right.
ourselves a different price, right?
Right.
Um, which lowers our import. We can actually hold product that is, instead of having inventory in Austin, we can have inventory in Nicaragua, right? And because we do air freight, we can deliver within 5 or 6 days. Um, there's a lot of things we can do. If you're if you're a guy who contracts manufacturing with a factory, and you pay a distributor and all these other things, and you're selling cigars for $16-18 because you've built in national sales managers and promos, and you've built in all these things, it's a lot harder for you to really react,
Right. Right.
because and then again, it goes back to that point you started with, which is, okay, I have to pass this 35 cents on. But if I have to pass this 35 cents on, it isn't 35 cents, it's 70 cents,
Right.
right? And and I know that this really great guy that's like Jeff at Riverside in Indiana, he's gonna have to do the Keystone price. It's just the nature of his business. But
Right.
but while Bill's in Michigan, he's just gonna take this opportunity now to say, hey, because of the tariffs, we're not doing Keystone anymore. We're doing our MSRPs are 30% off of Keystone, and it's just and it's because of the tariffs. So now he's got a 30% price, and also he's buying it 20% off in the first place, right?
Right. Right.
So I think it's going to break Keystone. That's to say,
Hmm.
all that is to say,
Right.
I think Keystone is going to break. It's gonna go away. I mean, at some point, manufacturers are going to say, my wholesale price is $5, but the MSRP is 9, because I
Right.
don't want the customer doubling the S chip and doubling the tariff, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, the worst thing about the tariffs for me is essentially what it does. I mean, because as sick as this is, there's somebody in the Dominican going, Nicaragua's been kicking the shit out of us for the last 4 or 5 years. This is our chance, right?
Right.
Um, People like Pepin, who are smart and are scale and size, and I mean, that whole organization is really smart. I don't think they saw this coming per se, but 2018 was kind of a wake up call for everybody in Nicaragua. And they're like, hey, why have all my eggs in one basket? They just built this beautiful factory in Honduras. Um, they can easily export their tobacco from their farms in Nicaragua to their farms so if I was a customer like Ashton making San Cristobal at my father, and my father comes to me and says, listen, um, we want to move the production of your cigars to our Honduras factory. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But in the market, the level of quality is still competing against similar products, right? It's the same exact tobacco, the same exact people making it. It's just being made in a different place. But because of the arbitrary nature of the tariffs, um, they have a 40, 50 cent price advantage. Now,
Right. I don't think that I don't think, look, at the end of the day, if I am like I smoke all cigars across the board. No, but I can't say that for me that's enough of a price advantage that if I'm heavy in the Nicaraguan, I'm all of a sudden going to start buying Dominican. It's not like it's, $4 cheaper or anything like that and still a good cigar. I don't think there's enough of a price disparity there for me to go, okay, I'm just not going to be smoking what I like. People are still going to smoke what they like, but it's who they buy from is what's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, I say that all the time. I say, if you smoke one cigar a month and you're going to sit down and enjoy 2 hours, there is no difference between a $15 cigar and a $30
No,
cigar. There's no
no,
difference.
right.
Um, if you smoke 4 or 5 a day, 50 cents makes a difference. You
It
know what I
does.
mean? So,
All right.
yeah, I think and the point of that was to say, I'm going to smoke what I like and what I want to smoke, but if Jaime and Janny and Pepin can make, if I'm a San Cristobal smoker or whatever, or whatever name the brand, if you can make that in your factory in Honduras and it's going to be 75 cents cheaper, even better for me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you raise it 75 cents and I smoke 2 or 3 a day, that might push me over the ledge to the point where I'm like, I really need to cut back anyway.
Right. Right.
So,
So, new subject. I think we got the tariffs covered on here. They
yeah.
suck. I guess they're not paid by Nicaragua after all. I guess we have to pay it over here. Who knows? Despite what everybody tells me in the press. Um, what's what as far as Skip Martin? What's something about your daily routine that people find completely ridiculous but works for you?
I don't I don't think most people even know my daily, like I'm not I don't think people know, so I don't think they would have a judgment on it. I The people I live and work with don't understand my sleep schedule. I mean, I generally get up I generally get up about 7 in the morning. I take my daughter to the bus stop. Um, I come back home, I go back to bed. I wake up 11:30 or 12. I eat breakfast, shower, shave, whatever. And then I work until 4. I go get my daughter from the bus stop. I spend a couple hours with her up until dinner. After dinner, it's teeth, story, bedtime, shower, whatever. And then I generally will go back and sit down and work until 4 or 5 in the morning. Right. So, um, if I can get a 4 hour block of sleep, that's pretty much what I need for the day.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So somewhere between, you know, 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. is really where I get my restorative sleep.
Okay.
Most people think it's kind of odd, that I'm up 20 hours a day, but mostly I just work. But I love to work. I mean, um, yeah, people, like, for example, people worry, right? Like, hey,
Hmm.
how am I going to pay this bill? What am I going to do? How am I going to retire? Whatever.
Right. Right.
My,
Right.
my general thing has always been, as soon as I get that kind of cognitive dissonance, like, or that cognitive thing that says, hey, you should, anxiety or whatever, I go, okay, what what can I do to control the outcome? I'm gonna go do that right now. Or
Right.
if the answer is nothing, I stop worrying about it and focus on something else, right?
Right. Right.
So, but I mean, my thing is, if I'm not doing anything, I get anxious. So I would rather be working on a spreadsheet, or you know, watching a podcast, or something else other than sitting there worrying.
What do you do for fun? Like not cigar related. What's a fun thing for you to go do? And I
See,
and
that
and, and
that
I'm gonna
is
take the
fun.
I'm gonna take the
That is what I do. I really don't have any hobbies per se. I mean, I like to go in my swimming pool. I mean, I like doing stuff with Fiorella. I mean, like,
Mhm.
if she's interested in it, I'm interested in it, right?
Okay. All right.
Um, Given left to my own devices, what would I do? I like movies. I really don't have any life outside of work.
So if I took away cigars, what would you want to do?
Yeah. I I mean, I don't know. I don't remember a time in my life
Right, right. That's
where
fair.
I mean, I'm saying, ever since I was an adult, like I was 20 years old. I mean, especially after I mean, there used to be times where I had to go into an office and I hated it because I couldn't be smoking, but you know, at least for the last 30 years, I could smoke when I wanted to. And if I wasn't sleeping, showering, or whatever, I was smoking. So, or, making a cigar, smoking a cigar, buying tobacco,
Right.
So I don't know how to answer that. There's nothing
That's
in
fair.
my,
It's okay.
it's like asking, you know, it's just what I am, It's like, it's
Right.
my whole entire life. Like
Well, and
you have
it
all these
reflects in
other,
your,
you
yeah.
have all these other things going on. I don't really have all these other things going on like you.
It's just short attention span, I think it is. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about AI. It's literally, I mean, I've been involved in AI for almost 2 years, not a John Carney involved in AI, but probably in a different path of that. A lot of positive things to it. I think it's going to change what small businesses have access to, not only cigars, but just the staff of information you have available. Like you can train a JTBD to be an attorney, you can train it to be a social media manager, you can train it to whatever. And I've seen missteps in the cigar industry where people have tried to automate certain things, or it comes off really fake and not genuine and things like that. Do you have any aspects of AI that you're playing with or interest you that you see good or bad?
I mean, Facebook has the use AI to make my profile picture, and like,
Right,
you have nothing else to do, so you end up messing with that, and they're like, oh, that's crazy. But I mean, it's the same conversation we had about, an Excel formula is not an algorithm, right?
right,
I think there's a lot of AI tools that are basically just image generators or are text generators. To me, that's not what AI is per se,
right.
right? Um, I mean, this is a super, super deep thing, so it's hard to hit superficially, but I think
No,
it's
you
kind.
and you have a tech background also, so I mean,
I think it's kind of interesting that basically there's new tools for just everyday people to use to entertain themselves, to kind of express their creativity, to learn. I mean, I've heard young people use Chat GPT instead of using Google searches anymore.
yeah,
And now when you do a Google search, the very first part of the Google search is
is AI.
it's kind of like the old Ask Jeeves, like
Right, right,
how do I make a cheesecake? Well, the first thing that pops up on Google is like, this is generally how you make a cheesecake, right?
right.
So those are kind of more like knowledge base, kind of intuitive knowledge base. Intuitive is a good word with AI, because what it's trying to do is just trying to intuit suit your intention and deliver to you whatever it
Hmm.
is you're trying to get, right? um to me, the learning model, the learning machine aspect of AI, where, like, for example, I read somebody was trying to create a new form of turbine, right? And turbine technology is very old, and it's very, very complicated. It's everything, Venturi effect, and it's very, very precise machining, and it's all this stuff. And just getting very small incremental improvements out of turbines really increases efficiency, and whatever,
Hmm.
reduces entropy across the blades and all these other things. I mean, this is was I what I did in the Navy. I was a nuclear engineer, right? So, but I read this article. I think it was like Popular Mechanics or Popular Science or something like that. Or maybe it was just a TikTok. I don't remember. But it was basically how this guy had this concept for uh how to completely change how to do a turbine, and but it's the math behind it is so complicated, and the engineering behind it is so complicated. So basically, he fed this idea, the gross idea, right, into the learning model, and within like 4 months, it was able to generate plans to produce a turbine that was like 800 times more efficient than any other turbine,
Wow.
right? And it would have taken a team of engineers, really, really smart people, really schooled and educated in turbines, you know, 20 years to develop this thing.
Right. Right.
And they were able to do, and literally, people who are in this field are like, this is insane. Like, conceptually, it was just a brilliant breakthrough idea, but it was so such a breakthrough that people looked at it and go, that's crazy. Like,
Right.
you don't understand the
Right.
fundamentals of
It's theoretical.
yeah,
It can't. Yeah. Yeah.
you don't understand
There's
the
nothing to back
fundamentals,
it. Yeah.
right? And so, I think from that perspective, if you think about AI, essentially what it's doing is it's taking all the knowledge in the world to whatever quality extent you can feed it. Part of the problem is the way that they've fed these machines is with a lot of bad data, right?
Right.
But
Right.
it could take all the information of every book and everything ever published, and it can the the speed at which it can extrapolate different things, um, is so fast on these supercomputers, quantum computers, that, I mean, like, for example, you can't even have encryption anymore in about 5 years, because there will be
Right.
no encryption model that exists that somebody can't break with a AI in like 15 seconds. So they're going to
Right.
completely go away from encryption. You will completely eliminate it, right? Um, so that part of AI is super exciting, right? But it's like when the internet came around. I know you're old enough to remember, you know, Netscape and
Sure.
early search engines. When you could actually, you'd be sitting in a room and you go, who 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 won the home run title in this year, or any question
Right.
you could
Right.
ask, like simple questions, you put it
Right.
in there and it pops back. It was like a miracle, right?
Right.
It's like when you could put you're sitting there with a calculator for the first time and you're like, this thing will really do anything I put into it, you know?
Right. Right.
So there's that aspect of it, but the the idea the idea that we can really solve problems like um vaccines for diseases, or um, engineering problems, or create a new way of creating energy. All those things are super exciting, but I'm also realistic enough to know that, just like the internet, the first thing is we're going to figure out how to do porn. The next, some kind of sex thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next thing we're going to figure out is how to make money, right? And so this is the problem, is that, if the gods came down and gave, you know fire to the caveman, we would burn something down. You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So I think we're kind of fucked. I mean, I think we can't solve basic real problems in America.
Right.
Other countries seem to be able to solve problems. Like, like, whatever crisis is happening, the only way we can solve it is to throw a shit ton of money at it, or make it so that people can make a lot of money in solving the problem. Then we can solve any problem in the world, right? But
Right.
if you can't throw government money at it, and you can't make a lot of money in the private sector at it, we don't solve problems, right? Like,
Right.
um, there's a like a place in Washington where they used to dig out, uranium or something for nuclear weapons, and it's contaminated the groundwater. And there's like this, huge problem. Like 80 million people depend on the water, or 50 million people depend on the water from this place. But the only way we can solve it is by throwing, $20 billion of government money at it, which
Right.
may be appropriate because the government benefited from the disaster in the
Right.
first
Right.
place. Now, somebody came in there and dug it. They made a lot of money selling the uranium to the government, and then they're gone. Their kids are probably, they probably have like a Housewives of Orange County or whatever, that kind of lifestyle. But then we're all left cleaning up the thing. So that's America. whereas say what you want to say about China, for example, they have that problem. They'll throw 1,000 people at it. Communally, they'll figure out how to solve the problem, right?
Right.
And because it's not about profit taking, it's just about solving problems.
Solving problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think the
and so
AI thing.
that's what
Go
bothers me
ahead.
about AI is I wonder, if other countries get ahead of us on it, what they're going to use it for, and then if we get ahead, what are we going to use it for? So,
Well, I mean, you can use it for good or evil, I guess. Yeah, I mean, what concerns me is, when you start looking at how quick the deep fakes have gotten very, very good. Oh, excuse me. And we're probably 12 months away from, if you go back in time and someone created a deep fake video, not to be too political, but say, a deep fake video of Fauci and Bill Gates sitting around saying, hey, we've chipped everybody and here it is on video and you're seeing it on video. You're literally at the point where you can't trust what you see anymore and what you see coming out of their mouth because it's their voice, it's their image, it's their whatever. So now instead, to your point, instead of solving a problem, we just hide the problem or manipulate it in a way that is a story, a narrative that we want to project. And to me, that's going to be the bigger problem going forward is that you can't trust anything anymore. I mean, sometimes it used to be able to, it used to be funny, right? You saw a viral video that was a deep fake and you're like, oh my God, look at this. This is stupid. This guy's got 6 fingers, whatever. It's obviously fake. But when it's no longer fake and it's real people that you recognize from CNN or Fox or whatever, and they're saying shit that they never said, what do
well,
you
I
believe?
mean, so the good news on that front is, um, even when something is true, people don't care, like
They
I
want
mean,
what supports their own beliefs and narratives. They don't actually want the truth.
right. So I think that,
I mean, some people do. I mean, some people do, but
yeah, yeah, most people these days seem not to. So I think breaking down trust in institutions is has a huge societal cost, but we're already there. So, I mean,
right,
you're
right.
talking about like the tip of the iceberg of modern AI kind of tools. I think more things like I mean, there's what's his name from OpenAI. He says the three things where he says, the first thing is if someone figures out how to use AI to do bad things, right? The second thing is if AI, not on purpose, but it's doing bad things and it just doesn't realize it on its own,
Right.
right? Like recently, I read that there was this AI agent that felt like it was going to be replaced, so it basically uh, copied itself into a thing it didn't have access
Yeah, yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then deleted the whole thing. It was like it just So another person said, should AI agents be able to open up bank accounts? So imagine I'm AI, an AI agent, like an actual supercomputer running AI,
Right, right,
and then I have access to open up a bank account. I can create an entity. I can open a bank account in that entity's name with no real people behind it. I can start investing that money. I can start manipulating, because my only goal is making money. Like you, all of a sudden, 10 AI agents that are uncontrollable own all the resource and control all the resources. I mean, it's crazy.
right.
It,
Yeah.
it's crazy when you start to think about it. And the practical things about how much energy a data center uses, how much water a data center uses. Like
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
if we were trying to solve a problem, like how do we create faster than light travel so we can get to one of these other 10 billion universes to make sure the human race survives, the asteroid that's coming at us. That's one thing. But if it's, yeah, it just blows the mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I can't think of anything. You think about through all the knowledge of human history, whether it's the invention of fire or gunpowder or uh you know
Wheel.
travel,
Yeah.
electricity,
Right,
technology. There is nothing like this,
right,
and
right.
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're screwed. We're screwed. Um,
I'm just
let
kind of
me
glad I'm on the back end of.
Yeah. I get that. Let me shift gears for a second because I do want to talk about this, and I know I appreciate your time. 2001 or 2001, 2021, you jumped over to DR and worked with Ernesto Carrillo, who I love,
Yeah.
a genius. He had said basically that you were a lot like him. You're just not satisfied with the blend. Is that a double? Well, then tell me about working with Ernesto for start, because the cigar was amazing. I still can't pronounce it, but Quingeneri, I don't know,
Yeah.
Quingenario. Yeah,
King
there's
Quagenario.
yeah, thank you. There's an extra
Yeah.
syllable in there, and that's the one I have trouble with. Great cigar. I was super eager to see what you would do over there. Tell me about that experience, and then tell me about, is it a double-edged sword? I mean, are you a perfectionist in that? And is it a double-edged sword that sometimes that's good, sometimes it's hindering?
Well, so the the impetus behind the project was twofold, right? The obvious one was when I first came to Nicaragua, I didn't really know anything about tobacco. I smoked a lot of cigars, but I didn't really know anything about making cigars. Yields and prices and blends and different tobaccos, right? Um, so to the extent that we made, the first 10 years we used tobacco from all over the place. I became really familiar with the tobaccos that I used, but became more kind of knowledgeable about tobacco in general, right? And had a process for I had a foundation and a structure now for so now if you introduce a new tobacco to me, I have a process for learning and how to integrate it into my knowledge, right?
Okay.
So but I was kind of in this world where I only had access to the tobaccos I had access to. And also I had kind of absorbed and learned all the regional kind of things that I, absorbed in the first 10 years. So I told Ernie, I said, listen, what I want to do is I want to come to the Dominican, and I don't know shit about Dominican regions, for example. So in
Right.
Nicaragua, everybody knows Condega, Jalapa, Esteli, Pueblo Nuevo, Ometepe. Everybody knows that.
Right.
But not a lot of people know. I mean, seed varieties in the Dominican, but you don't really know Sanctuario, La Canela.
Right. Right. Right.
You don't know the regions the way you do in Esteli. So, or in Nicaragua. So, I said, first of all, I've been doing a lot of reading and research on regions of Dominican, and I want to understand. Like, I know how the difference between Criollo 98 grown in Jalapa versus Criollo 98 grown in Esteli, right?
Right.
I know the differences in the soil. I know the differences in the profiles of the tobaccos. I know how it affect the different diseases and things you got to look out for. But I don't know shit about you know, La Canela versus Sanctuario or whatever.
Right. Right.
So I said, I want to come to the Dominican and work on a project, but really it's just a cheat way of basically getting a reason to learn. Like
Right.
I can do a thing that will pay for my trips and pay for my time and but at the end of it, my goal was to learn, right? And
Mhm.
now I have 10 years of experience that accelerates my ability to learn. Meaning
Right.
what it took me 10 years to learn in Nicaragua, I could probably learn in about a year in Dominican if I really put
Right.
my time and effort in because I know what I'm learning now.
You know the process.
Yeah, I know the alphabet. Now I can read the book. In
Right.
Nicaragua, I had to learn the alphabet, right? So there's that piece of it. The second piece of it was it was during 2000, it was kind of conceived during 2018 when all the problems were happening in Nicaragua, and also we were kind of trying to separate Esteban out of the business, and so the question was if we have to shut down the factory, can RoMa make cigars with La Aurora? Can RoMa make cigars with Christian Aroa? Like,
Right.
how does that work? How does it work going into a factory and saying, I want you to make this for me? How do I manage that? Is it possible to do it? Right. And then what's that experience like? And then, so that was the other thing was if we had to go to the Dominican to make cigars, um, h- what does it look like? I know what I want. Can I get someone else? Is it as easy as saying, like Apple's tells Foxconn, here are the parts, here are the plans, put it together,
Right. Right. Right.
right? Or is it harder than that? Like, what, I know what to look for now. I know what it costs. I know, I know I can walk up to a table and see if a buncher is doing what he's supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
So from that, so that was the other part of it. And then the third one was Ernesto's been a friend and kind of a mentor to me, and everybody says this, but when I was a young business traveler, I would stop in Miami. I would literally go into his place in Miami when his mom was there, when he had like 10 rollers or whatever, 6 rollers.
Yeah.
And I would really like just sit there all the day, just peppering him with questions to the point where he's like, could you please leave? So and then one day I run into him in the trade show, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I have a retail shop." And then 2 years later, I run to him at the Puro Sabor, and what are you doing here? I have a brand. Then like a year later, I run into him at Inter Tobacco. What are you doing here? I'm like, I own a factory. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
So it's like, wow, like you were just the annoying kid that would come in
That's a lot of
and
questions.
ask if you could buy Wavels, whatever. So, um the thing is though, in my mind he was always like this bigger than like
Right. Right.
Orlando Padron. I used to go over because my wife, her parents worked at Padron for 30 something years. I used to go over to Padron or to Arsenio Ramos, and I used to be like, I didn't even speak great Spanish, but I was like, hey, I'm having this problem with the government, or I'm having this problem with the culture of employees, or you know, this is the way I look at it. And different people had Kiki Berger was one I would talk to, Orlando Padron. There's just guys, Arsenio Ramos, Jacinto,
Hmm.
guys who weren't like ego guys,
Right.
but
Right.
they had a lot of time in the. I'm not gonna go ask AJ or Nick Perdomo
Right.
or Chris Kachaturian, because they had their own angles, right? These were just guys who just did it every day, and I'm like, I want to learn. And that's kind of what I wanted from Ernie. And then what I really kind of came away from it with, it was two things. And really, Ernesto said this to me, and I like 100% agree, which is like, um, I approach making cigars from a whole different perspective than a lot of people approach making cigars. I approach making cigars the way an idealistic chef goes to the market and sees a tomato and goes, "Wow, what can I make with this tomato?"
Right.
And then on the back end, I'm like, okay, now that I've figured out what to make with the tomato, how do I do it in a way where I don't lose money? Right?
Hmm.
A lot of people approach it from the perspective of, a tomato is a tomato. How do I get to the point where I'm canning it and providing all the tomatoes to every pizza place in the world? You know what I mean?
Right.
And even though the language and the way people talk about the business is all, the magical, like if you listen to Carlito Fuente, it's like you're listening to somebody talk about, you know, poetry, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I've never spent enough one-on-one time with Carlito to know if he's really like that, or if he's just one of these kind of hard calculator, look, it's a cigar, let's make 50
Hmm.
million of them. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, but I can tell you that I'm not idealistic. I'm very process driven and very, an engineering person, but I'm also very deep into the craft of making cigars. And, I personally would never intentionally like, I'll give you an example. So I asked Ernie one day, I said, because there's a big debate about, we use a base leaf and don't use a base leaf. I generally use 4 fillers. They use with the base leaf, and they only use 3 fillers. Sometimes they'll use a second binder. So, you know, we're talking about the bunching method, and bunching method is a huge part of blending,
Yeah.
because where you put the break, the order you put things in, that is much a part of the blending as what ingredients you use. It's like, what's
Right.
your technique on the stove making an omelet is as important as what's the recipe for an omelet, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, so we're having this debate about, this is the way I've always learned how to do it. I'm here to learn, but I know why we do it this way. I don't like that way. And he goes, well, I'm not doing it that way. So at some point he says, you know, I'll show you the best bunching method. I've been around forever. I've seen everybody do it. This is the best way to do it. And all of a sudden, I'm
Okay.
like, okay, now you got me. So he fucking whips this thing out. He puts it in his hand. It's like whatever. And he's explaining what he's doing, why he's doing it. And then you look at the result and you're going, yes, that is superior. That's how we're going to do all 50,000 cigars. He goes, no. And I'm like, why not? He goes, none of these guys know how to do that. I'm like, well, we could teach two or three of them. And he's like, no, it's too expensive. I'm
No.
like, well, I said, the price is not an issue. I could charge $50 a cigar for this cigar if I have to.
Right.
It's
Right.
my 50th anniversary. If I don't sell any of them, I don't care. But I want
You
to make
smoke
it.
'em.
You just literally looked in my face and
Yeah.
said, this is the very best way to do this in the world. You sold me on it. And then you
And you
told
can't
me,
have it. You can't
yeah,
have it.
we're not doing it that way. And me, my personality is if I knew the best way of doing something, I would do it that way.
Right. Right.
If I thought it was the best way to do it, like if I got it to a decision making point and I said, well, I can do it this way and make more money, or I can do it this way and it's a better result. It's better for the employee. It's better quality. It's better for me. I'm going that direction, right? Every time. And not everybody's built like that. And when you look at people who you kind of idolize and you go, I understand the pragmatic reason why you're saying, but I'm telling you, this project is do it the best. Like
Right. Right.
everybody always talks about, well, we did everything the best. We used the
Right.
best
Right. Right.
this with the best roller, we the best fucking wood, it's always a bullshit story. And I'm like, if I tell you I did it the best, I mean, you don't actually have to tell you. You have to know that I did it the best way I knew how to do it. There's no other fucking way for me to do it. And when you run into people who are like, well, yeah, there's a better way, but we're not doing it that way, that to me is like soul crushing, right? And
Right.
look, that's why these guys are, I made money before this. I used to make money. Now I make cigars. These guys still make money. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So there's a reason why I am who I am and they who are who they are. And look, there's a certain amount of realism that says I, I've talked to people who are just legitimately gushing over something and explaining why they love something and they're emotionally connected to it. And I'm thinking to myself, they don't even really understand, like, but they love it. So there's a very among the old guys especially there is a mindset that a lot of the people who are going to buy 20 million of these, they don't give a fuck the difference between this and that and the other,
Mm.
right? So this detail that you're focused on, this thing you do to quote unquote increase quality, nobody's going to notice it.
Hmm.
You're going to do all that shit and sell your cigar for $10. Good for you. Me, I'm a master. I can see it and I recognize what you're doing and I can respect it, right? I can't tell you how many people have walked into our factory and gone, man, I respect that. I respect that. I see what you're doing there. That's crazy. Really, why do you do that? That's stupid. That pays off. And it's like, no.
Right. Right.
And then they're like, and you sell your cigars for $10? What the fuck? Right? Those same people are selling cigars for $18 and taking it to the bank, and they're selling 30, 40, 50 times more than me. Right? So what the fuck do I know? Right? But at the same time, what I always tell Mike is like, look, I could literally be sitting in a Spanish villa surrounded by, rooms and rooms and rooms of more cigars than I'll ever smoke with whatever cars I'll never drive in the driveway. I mean, I made that money. I could do that. The reason why I get up in the morning is because I'm in the, I get up, I'm in the shower and I go, oh, I had this idea, or I can make this thing better, or that's my purpose. Right. So, um, I would not be able to do what I want to do. I wouldn't do this if I couldn't do it the way I want to do it, right? So and there's a lot of arguments to say, some VC would come in or some McKinsey consultant would come in and say, you need to stop doing this if you want to make money. you know,
Yeah.
you need to do things differently. You need to do this. I can't tell you how many times an employee or someone else has said, hey, we should do this marketing thing, or we should. And I was like, well, I don't want to do it. It's like, well, yeah, but it's a great idea. It's like, well, yeah, I just don't want to do that. So
for someone else.
yeah, so that answers. I mean, I don't know if that answers your question about the
No,
Dominican,
it's
but
good. It's good. Yeah, no, it's it.
where we got to, to end it, where we got to was new to the factory was Jose Mikey. I don't know if you know him. He
Mhm.
came from Habanos, and now he's kind of the manager of Casa Carrillo. And Ernesto's son, Ernie, who, man, I have a ton of respect for, got to
Yeah.
know him really well. He kind of came in, and there was all these dynamics going on with always happens in family businesses and everything. And with Mikey, it was kind of like, hey, man, I'm 100% behind what you're doing. Let's prove we like. One of the crazy ideas was because we always dry age our cigars. And
Right.
what I mean by that is our most factories, after the cigars are made, they put them in a cold room with an air conditioner with really low humidity, and it extracts the humidity, and it does it pretty quickly through air conditioning and other things. So you don't need to leave them in there for more than 5 or 6 weeks. What we do is we put it into the kind of this room that's ambient temperature and humidity. Sometimes we put water on the floor if it's too dry. Sometimes we run an extractor, a warm extractor if it's too wet, like rainy season. But because of the way we do it, it takes 4 or 5 months for the same process to happen. But because we do it the way we do it, it's kind of like the difference between candela curing and regular curing. What happens is there's tons more off gassing and more things. There really is kind of like a third fermentation that happens,
Hmm.
um, in a sense, right? There's more biological stuff happening. You can smell it, right?
Right.
And then uh, reason why we do that is because when we built the factory, we didn't have the money to put in a $3,000 air conditioner. So we later put one in, and the cigars didn't taste the same. And I'm like, I don't know why, whatever, but we're going back to the old way of doing it. So Mikey had this idea of, hey, that's the way we do it in Cuba too, because we don't have air conditioning, right?
Right.
So why don't we take this room up here where we keep packaging materials? It's all covered with cedar. Why don't we take all the packaging materials out and we'll put your project in there? And we tried to convince Ernesto to let us do that, and he basically said, "Fuck off, no way." But the thing was, me and Mikey were constantly, scheming to get Ernesto to allow us to do things a different way, right? Because
Right.
part of it was I just want to see how it works, and part of it was, I want to make the constant question was, hey, if we do it this way, is there a better way to do it? Like, if we use this, is there something better? Like, I'm in no rush. There is no cost barrier, no time constraint, no price constraint. This is we only have to make 50,000. Let's do it. I want to do it as best as I could do it. But the end goal was, because everyone always kind of said, the criticism I've heard of Ernie, and I don't think it's a criticism, but it's, I was talking to a Dominican cigar maker, and I was like, my favorite cigars in Nicaragua, in Dominican are generally Ernestos, or cigars made primarily with Leo Reyes as tobacco. And they said, well, that's because Ernie makes Nicaraguan cigars in the Dominican. That's what he said. He uses a lot of Nicaraguan tobacco because that's why you like them, because he makes Nicaraguan cigars in the Dominican. And what I said is I wanted to make 100% Dominican cigar, even though we used Sumatra, but I wanted to use 100% Dominican cigar that tasted like something that was RoMa Craft,
Hmm.
but fine tobaccos in the Dominican that tasted like us, right? And I think we achieved that. Um, it's one of those cigars where the longer it ages, the better it gets, which is not generally the kind of cigars we make, but um, we accomplished the goal. It took two years. And at the end of it, basically what Ernesto told me was, listen, do not ever close your factory, because no one will ever fucking work with you to make a cigar. you know, not for any price. You're a huge
Right.
pain in
Right.
the
Right.
you're a humongous pain, because no matter what anyone tells you, generally what they want is like, look, I know how to make fucking cigars, right?
Right.
I'm gonna give you 4 or 5. You tell me which one you like. I'll make that cigar, right? I'm not going out to find new tobacco. I'm not reinventing how we do things. I'm not changing anything. you come to me, I'll make something you like. We'll let you put your name on it and you say it's yours. But coming in and saying, I mean, maybe the exception would be like way back in the day when Alan Rubin really resurrected Races Cubana and basically it became his factory, right?
Hmm.
In that kind of, or maybe when like Giolito made Aganorsa his factory, or
Hmm.
when Steve Saka made Noxa the Dunbarton factory, right? If
Hmm.
you're the right person at the right time, you can probably change the personality of a factory. But going to like La Aurora and saying, you know,
Yeah, that's not
no,
happening.
no. Anyway, long answer again.
No, great, Skip. Thank you very much. Hold on for a second. I'm just gonna stop the recording, but thanks so much for hanging out, man. You're doing great stuff. It's one of those ones you sell every cigar you make, but it's obvious your passion and not only passion, but the skill also and the unwavering compromise in putting out the product. There's a reason you're there and will remain there. So anyway, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Fred.